can't find my bracelet. My mother-in-law must have taken it again. Stop complaining. It's from Mom. Just deal with it. My mother-in-law has a habit of taking my stuff without asking, and my husband sides with her every time. Why won't he stand up for me? I'm seriously struggling here. Then the unthinkable happened. My husband's prized luxury car got stolen. I know who did it. My name is Emma. I'm 28 years old. My happy life with my husband Ethan started to crumble about a year into our marriage. We both work, but I get off earlier, so I head home and prepare dinner. That day, waiting for my husband to come home, he dropped a bomb. Mom's coming to stay with us starting next week. Wait, what? You mean she's staying overnight? My husband sighed heavily at my question. She's not just staying. She's moving in. Moving in? Yeah, it's like living together, since Dad passed away. Mom's been alone. She's getting older. It's tough for her. Hold on a second. You can't just decide this. We have our own lives too. At least give me some time to think. Despite my plea, my husband just grinned and brushed it off. It's fine. Mom wants to feel secure, so she just wants to live with us. I get that she might feel lonely and insecure, but you made this huge decision without consulting me. Couldn't you at least have told me? Why do I need to report every little thing to you? She's my mother. That's exactly the point. She's your mom, not mine. I have to make all sorts of adjustments, What are you so mad about? Anyway, it's settled. Deal with it. Wait, hold on. Ignoring me, my husband walked out of the room. Left behind, I felt my frustration growing. How could he make such a big decision about us living together without even consulting me? I still have to make adjustments no matter what. Ethan doesn't lift a finger around the house and acts like it's no big deal because she's his mom. We've tried talking it through several times, but all he says is, "It's already been decided," shutting down any conversation. Sure enough, next week, his mother-in-law, shows up at our house just like it was planned. If mother-in-law was a normal person, I wouldn't be so against living together. But every time I see her, she makes snide remarks and bullies me. That's exactly why I can't fathom living with her and only go to her house when absolutely necessary. But now, out of the blue, it's been decided we'll be living together. As I expected, mother-in-law started making snide comments to me the very first day. "Emma, don't you know I was coming today? There's trash in the corner of the room." "I'm sorry, I was working today, so I didn't have time to clean." Excuses. Couldn't you have cleaned up after work? But then I wouldn't have time to prepare dinner. Oh, for heaven's sake, stop talking back. How do you even manage being Ethan's wife? Be more efficient. I'm sorry. 10 minutes in our home and it's already like this. I'm really worried about what's to come. From that day on, mother-in-law's oppressive behavior escalated and constantly stressed me out. One day I came home from work and mother-in-law greeted me with a huge smile, saying, "Welcome home." I usually don't get this kind of greeting, so it was eerie. Then I noticed something shiny around mother-in-law's neck. Wait, is that necklace? It looked similar to what I owned. Having a bad feeling, I rushed to my room and checked my jewelry box. My suspicion was correct. I immediately headed to the living room and confronted mother-in-law, who was sitting there leisurely. "Mother-in-law, that necklace. It's mine, isn't it?" "Oh, you finally noticed. It suits me, don't you think?" I lost my cool with her shameless reply. "What are you talking about? Stop using my stuff without permission." "What's the big deal? It's not like it's going to be used up or anything." "That's not the point." "Stop complaining and get dinner ready. Ethan will be home soon." Even as I prepared dinner, my mother-in-law continued to interfere, ratcheting up my stress levels. That night, I couldn't take it anymore and decided to talk to my husband. Hey, Ethan, can we talk?
What's up?
Today, I caught mother-in-law wearing my necklace without asking.
Oh? So?
So, do you get it? She went into my room, opened my jewelry box, and basically stole it.
Stole? Aren't you exaggerating?
Exaggerating? How am I exaggerating?
Calm down, I'm sure Mom didn't mean any harm.
Anger welled up in me at my husband siding with mother-in-law. Holding back from raising my voice, I kept making my point. You're saying it's okay to go into someone's room without permission and take their stuff? A normal person would at least say sorry.
Well, Mom just saw something nice and took it.
That's not the point, Ethan. You need to talk to her.
What? Me?
Of course you. Mother-in-law disrespects me. Telling her off won't do anything. So you, her son, need to do it.
Fine.
I'm counting on you, okay? Despite my emphasis, it seemed my husband forgot by the next day. I shot him a few dirty looks, but he never confronted mother-in-law. Since then, mother-in-law started using my stuff without asking. In other words, she borrowed without permission. No matter how much I complained, she didn't listen. Plus, there are no locks on the doors in this house, so telling her off will be pointless unless she changes her ways. If this continues, I'll end up losing my belongings. I have to put a stop to mother-in-law's behavior. I need to come up with some sort of plan. Then, one day, an incident occurred that I absolutely couldn't forgive. Well, it's gone. How could this happen? Today I had plans to meet up with a friend and wanted to wear my late mother's bracelet for the occasion. It's a precious item, so I never keep it in the jewelry box. Instead, it's stashed deep in my desk drawer. And yet, it's missing. The only person who could have taken it is my mother-in-law. When I confront her sternly, she casually admits to the theft.
Oh, that bracelet? I just borrowed it.
Borrowed it? Then give it back right now. I need it.
I can't do that.
Why not?
Because I sold it.
What? You sold it? Is this some kind of joke? Who sells someone else's belongings? Though rattled, I fought back. Enough with the jokes. Give it back now.
It's no lie. By the way, most of the things I've borrowed from you, sold those too.
What on earth are you thinking? As I argue with my mother-in-law, my husband Ethan, who just woke up, joins us. Ethan, listen to this! In a rush, I explain the situation. Your mom sold my bracelet.
Bracelet?
The one that belonged to my late mom. Plus, she's been selling off most of the stuff she's borrowed from me without my permission.
Mom, is this true?
Faced with the question, my mother-in-law sticks out her tongue in a mock gesture.
I'm on a fixed income, you know. I don't want to be a burden, but I can't make ends meet without a little extra cash.
You've got to be kidding. What gives you the right?
Don't get so mad. I didn't mean any harm.
Mean any harm? If you meant no harm, you wouldn't be selling and stealing other people's stuff.
That's because...
Where did you sell it? Buy it back right now. At that moment, my husband yelled,
"Enough is enough!"
He was glaring, not at his mom, but at me. Confused, I questioned him. Why are you yelling at me, Ethan? Your mom took my bracelet without asking.
Be quiet. I did it for Mom. Stop complaining.
For Mom? Are you kidding? Why do I have to give up my cherished items for her?
Because it makes Mom happy. She's your mother-in-law. Show some respect. Just do as you're told.
I snapped right then and there. I couldn't take it anymore. Not his thieving mom, and not Ethan taking her side. I can't go on living with people like this. Fueled by rising hatred, I shouted back, "That's it! If you're not going to return it, let's get a divorce."
What? Quit joking about divorce.
I'm not joking. I am dead serious.
Fine, whatever. I'll get the divorce papers today.
Good. If you're going that way, I have no problem with it. Amidst our argument, his mom had a look of satisfaction on her face. She never liked me. Her real goal was likely to get me out and have this house to herself and her son. That night, my husband came home and handed me the filled-out divorce papers. After signing them, I began to pack. I'll pick the right moment to leave. That's what I decided. The next day, during my work break, I checked my phone and found multiple missed calls from my nearby living sister, Sophia. Something must have happened. I called her back, and she dropped a bombshell. Wait, Sophia, is that true?
It is. No mistaking it. It's not something you see around here.
But why?
I took a photo, so I'll send it. Make sure to check it on your end, too, sis.
Okay, got it. Right after hanging up, a photo came through from my sister. Without a doubt, it was the damning evidence that could ruin my mother-in-law. When I got home and was calmly preparing dinner, my husband Ethan stormed in, looking panicked.
Emma, this is serious.
What happened?
My prized car is missing.
Wow, that sounds serious.
Come on, why are you so indifferent? You know how much that car means to me.
I do. It's the car you've been dreaming of since you were single, and you finally managed to buy it last year, right?
Exactly. So act more concerned.
We're still paying off the car loan.
Where could it have gone? Don't tell me, Emma. Did you take it out?
Of course not. I have my own compact car. Plus, I know you'd be mad if I took yours.
Right, but then where?
My eyes glanced towards mother-in-law, and she quickly looked away. That confirmed my suspicion. Ethan, I think mother-in-law knows something.
What? Why would Mom know?
Isn't that right, mother-in-law? As I questioned her, mother-in-law's face turned ashen.
What are you talking about, Emma? How is Mom involved?
Well, I got a call from Sophia today.
Sophia?
She happened to be out shopping and saw mother-in-law driving your car.
What?
That car's a foreign model and it's blue, so it's pretty recognizable around here. Sophia said that she even recognized the license plate.
Wait, hey, what's going on here?
Ethan, now red in the face, confronted mother-in-law. Mother-in-law started stammering her excuses.
No, Ethan, I just borrowed the car for a little bit. Borrowed? Are you kidding me? I've told you countless times not to touch that car. I'm sorry, but I just really wanted to drive it. What the heck did you do with the car then? Did you leave it somewhere? No, that's not it. But I did leave the keys in the ignition. Someone from the neighborhood must have stolen it. Stolen? Are you kidding me? I swear I drove the car all the way home. I'm not lying.
I showed mother-in-law a photo to put her in her place. Is this why you're lying, mother-in-law? Because you wrecked the car like this?
What the? Emma? How did you get that picture?
The photo I showed her was sent to me by my sister, Sophia. It clearly showed mother-in-law driving a badly damaged luxury car. My sister took this just in case and sent it to me. You took Ethan's car and ended up damaging it so much that you couldn't drive it back, could you?
No, that's not.
So where's the car? Besides, if someone from the neighborhood had stolen it, someone would have noticed, right?
Well, you see,
my husband started shaking next to me and yelled at mother-in-law with a fierce look on his face.
Are you kidding me? You damaged my car and then what? Give it back now. Calm down, Ethan. How can I be calm? You're paying for the repairs, got it? That's impossible. I've already sold the car. Sold it? That's not possible. The car's in my name. I found a dealer that said they would buy any car. They said I could even sell it as proxy. So I sold it for $4,000.
What?
$4,000?
The luxury car my husband bought would easily go for hundreds of thousands, even if sold now. Mother-in-law was fooled by some sketchy dealer who didn't know the car's worth and got ripped off. When my husband found out, he was livid and yelled at mother-in-law like never before.
You've got to be kidding me. Do you know how much that car meant to me?
I'm sorry, Ethan.
You better make it right. I'll give you back the $4,000, so please forgive me. $4,000 isn't even close to enough. Get out!
My husband forcefully kicked his mother out and locked the front door. He turned to me, defeated, and mumbled,
I never thought Mom could be so toxic. I'm sorry for not taking your side before.
It's about time you got it. Don't worry, I'm over it.
Now that she's gone, let's live happily together again.
Excuse me? No, we won't.
What?
I want a divorce. Instantly, his face turned pale and he clung to me.
Hold on a second. I already kicked Mom out. Why divorce now?
Don't you get it? I'm fed up with you, too. My decision to divorce stands. I have no intention of mending things at this point. You've sided with your mom so many times.
That's unfair. You're being too harsh.
Harsh? You've got some nerve. You did nothing when I needed help. You're so self-centered. I despise you just as much as I despise your mother. My feelings will never change.
Emma, calm down.
Shut up. All of this happened because you decided to live with her. Reflect on that. I will never forgive you. What happened with the car? You got what you deserved. Serves you right.
What? You feel that way?
Of course. I hope you suffer double the mortgage on the house and the car. It's the punishment you deserve. You're going to have to take it as far as you can, you son of a bitch. I left him with those words and grabbed my packed bags on my way out. I headed straight to City Hall to file for divorce. I deleted all his contact info and cut ties completely. Later, I demanded compensation from my mother-in-law for selling my belongings without my permission. She reluctantly started working. With demands for car payments from her son, she's likely working for the rest of her life. My husband is left with house and car loans, and his life has changed significantly. He no longer goes on stress-relieving drives, spending his days off confined to the house. A hopeless case, both mother and son. Karma's a real thing. Serves you right. After all this, I moved to an apartment near my workplace. Now that I'm single again, I have more financial freedom, and life is much more peaceful. Since it's my day off, maybe I'll take a drive to the beach today. This is what freedom feels like. I plan to enjoy my new life to the fullest.
You just stay home all day, right? Tired from just cleaning? Why don't you try switching places with me and see the real struggle? Maybe I should divorce such a useless wife.
Ugh, not this again. The way my husband treats me, a homemaker, is truly exhausting. My name is Jennifer. I'm a 34-year-old woman. I married David, my coworker, 2 years ago after a workplace romance. Back then, I planned to continue working after marriage. But David said,
I'll work hard outside. You take care of the home. That's my ideal. Men work outside, women protect the home.
I naively agreed. I quit my job to become a full-time homemaker, influenced by David's perspective. I used to be easily swayed by others' opinions. Above all, I deeply loved David. So, I followed whatever he said without questioning. I guess I was blinded by love. If only I had stood my ground and not quit my job. Maybe things wouldn't have turned out this way. That's what I still believe. People think homemakers just laze around at home all day, But in reality, it's not like that. Cleaning, laundry, neighborhood meetings, they all consume more time than one might think. Doing all these tasks daily by myself is honestly tough. Employees get weekends off, but homemakers don't. So, on Sundays when David's home, I'd ask, "Hey, I'm a bit busy. Could you help clean the bathroom?" But he'd instantly get grumpy.
Seriously? I work every day to provide, and now you want me to work at home too? Who do you think provides the meals?
If I dared to say, "I appreciate your hard work during the week, but we're a team, right? Can't you help out a bit on your days off?" David would snap back.
Stop bossing me around. You think you can survive on your own, just being a homemaker? Want a divorce?
David immediately snapped.
Who do you think you are? Just because you're home all day doesn't mean you can boss me around. Want me to divorce you? Think you, just a housewife, can survive on your own?
Shockingly, he threatened divorce. I was at a loss for words. Maybe I shouldn't have reacted the way I did. From then on, every time I said something, David would end with,
If you don't like it, let's divorce.
It felt like he was using that phrase to control me. Even though I used to work, I had retired and become a housewife. The idea of divorce that David kept bringing up was terrifying. If he really divorced me, how would I survive? What about income? Where would I live? For me, a housewife, nothing was scarier than the thought of divorce. What scared me the most was David himself. He used to be so kind. How did he change so much after we got married? Did I make a mistake in judging him? I deeply regretted marrying David. Lately, as soon as David comes home, he'd say,
Isn't it obvious you should greet me at the door when I, the breadwinner, come home? Who do you think pays for everything here?
Yes, David earns the money, but I take care of everything at home. We're supposed to be partners, not in a master-servant relationship. It's supposed to be an equal relationship. Yet, David seems to believe he's superior. He looks down on me, thinking he's above. At first, I thought maybe he was venting work frustrations on me. So I kept quiet. But over time, David began to act like he was always right. And every day was like this. After his lecture, David carelessly throws his suit all over the place and changes into casual clothes. I pick them up and toss them into the washing machine. This is a daily routine. Even after eating the dinner I prepared, he complains.
Is this all you can cook? I work hard for you. And this is the meal I come home to? Where's your gratitude?
I've grown tired of dealing with David's constant complaints. Despite David not earning a high salary, I manage our finances, saving for our future children, leaving little room for extra expenses. Still, I always try to prepare healthy meals, using nutritious ingredients and cutting down on salt. Yet, he still finds reasons to complain. I felt like everything I did was being negated, and my self-confidence dwindled day by day. On top of that, He demands $500 a month for his personal expenses. If I gave him that much, our finances would be in the red. At first, I used some of my savings to cover the expenses, but that wasn't sustainable. So, I tapped into my connections and started a remote job that I could do from home. Of course, I didn't tell David. You see, a while back I had mentioned, "Hey, things are a bit tight with our finances. I was thinking of getting a part-time job. Is that okay?" To which he snapped.
What? Are you saying I don't earn enough? You probably just want extra cash to splurge, right? You should just stick to taking care of the house.
Knowing David, I was sure that if I earned, he'd just take more for his personal expenses. So, I decided to work remotely without telling David. The money I earned went towards our living expenses and savings for the future. A former colleague introduced me to his remote job. I would log into the company system and handle administrative tasks, mainly settling travel expenses claimed by employees. Having experience from my previous job, the work wasn't challenging. More than that, being home all day, this remote job gave me a sense of purpose. It felt rewarding. Then, one day, after juggling remote work and household chores, I was exhausted. I decided to take a short break and lay down on the sofa. That was a mistake. I unintentionally fell asleep and was awakened by David in the evening. It was already night. Of course, dinner wasn't ready, and neither was the bathroom. David, seeing this, sighed and said,
What were you doing all day?
"Lounging around? Neglecting the house?
I come home and you're just napping on the sofa.
Seriously, homemakers are just leeches." Usually I wouldn't react to David's words, but that day I was tired, so I snapped back. "What's your problem? I just happened to fall asleep today. Stop making it sound like I do nothing all day." David, not expecting a retort, turned red with anger.
You're defying me? I'm the head of this household. How dare you speak to me in that tone? If you're going to be defiant, leave this house.
"Well, maybe I will. I've been waiting to take some time for myself anyway." It was a classic case of tit for tat. I quickly packed some essentials and headed to a nearby hotel. The look of shock on David's face as I left was priceless. He probably never imagined I'd actually leave. In the past, I would have just been bewildered if David told me to leave. But now, things were different. After all, I had my remote job as a source of income. Being confined to the house and only doing household chores, this job became my only connection to the outside world. The feeling of being appreciated and thanked directly for my work. Seeing my efforts being rewarded with a paycheck. Having never received gratitude from David for all the housework, this job had become a significant part of my life. Thanks to my remote job, I gained confidence and strength. Maybe some time apart would be good for both of us. With that thought, I lived in the hotel for about a week. During that time, I continued my remote work from the hotel and even uncovered some fraudulent activities by an employee. Then, one day, my phone rang. It was David. I was thinking it might be time for me to return home. so I hoped this call would be the perfect opportunity. When I answered, David said,
Hey, isn't it about time you came back? You've had some time to reflect, right?
"Who does he think needs to reflect here?" Even as I was at loss for words, David continued,
You must be missing me, right? Life must be tough without me. If you apologize, I'll let you come back home.
Such arrogance from him. Who does he think he is? So I decided to play it humble and said, "I'm really sorry. It was my fault. I miss you every day. Please let me come back home." To my surprise, he responded with such relief.
I knew it. You can't handle life without me. Fine, come back home.
He couldn't even see through my act. I was taken aback, but decided to return home with an innocent face. When I got back, the house was a complete mess. Clothes were scattered all over the floor, with no place to step. Trash overflowed from the bin, giving off a foul smell. Dirty dishes piled up in the sink. In just a week, he managed to turn the place upside down. I was almost impressed. I thought maybe he'd have cooled off in my absence. Maybe he'd have taken care of the house. All my maybes were shattered. He probably called me back because he couldn't handle the mess anymore. Not because he missed me or felt sorry. Realizing this, I was disappointed in David. I couldn't believe it had come to this. I was once again disappointed by David's carelessness. But in a way, I was grateful, because it gave me the push I needed to do what I had planned for David without any hesitation. For about a month, I acted as if nothing was wrong at home. I cleaned up the mess David made and followed his every command, even when he complained. Then, the day of reckoning came. I executed the plan I had prepared and waited for David to come home. I didn't prepare dinner or even the bathroom. When David came home, he was angry that I hadn't greeted him at the door or prepared dinner. I simply apologized. "I'm sorry, I was so busy today and couldn't get to it." Feeling empowered by my submissive attitude, David lashed out even more than usual, and then he said those words.
You're just a parasite, you know. You can't earn money and can't even manage the house properly. I wonder what would happen to a woman like you if we divorced. Maybe I should just file for divorce, huh?
I had been waiting for him to say that. The word divorce that David flaunted like a badge of honor. With a smile, I replied, "You don't need to file. I've already prepared the divorce papers." David looked confused, so I showed him the actual divorce papers, already signed by me. "All you need to do is sign." David started to panic. Of course, he never expected me to agree to a divorce.
What? No. You'd be the one in trouble if we divorced, right?
"Don't worry. I'll be just fine. Haven't you noticed? Look around the house. Don't you see?" David looked around frantically.
Where's the TV? The fridge is gone too. What's going on?
"Oh, did you forget? I brought the TV and the fridge when we moved in. So, it's only natural that I take them with me when we divorce. I had everything I bought removed by professionals."
Wait, You can't divorce me. How will you survive without my income? See, I sighed. Don't you get it? The person handling expense claims at your company, that's me. We never met face to face, only communicated through chat or email. So you never realized. Yes, I was working remotely for my former workplace, which is David's company. The old acquaintance I mentioned was a colleague from that company. I had been hired part-time on the condition of remote work. I used my maiden name as my family name and kept my first name. At first, I thought David might find out. But that was needless worry. For me, David had long forgotten my maiden name. I'll tell you one last thing. Your expense claims were clearly off compared to others. So I looked into it. I've already reported the results to our boss. The employee misconduct I discovered while at the hotel was none other than David. While handling David's expense reports, I found several suspicious claims. Claims for travel expenses, for supposed business trips and hotel stays. But as his wife, I knew David was home on those days. David was trying to embezzle money by claiming fake business trips. He probably thought he'd gotten away with it. But as his wife, it was clear to me he hadn't actually gone on those trips. So I cross-referenced his past claims with his actions on those days and investigated all his fraudulent claims. At first, I wondered if I could somehow brush it under the rug, but after a week in the hotel and hearing David's words over the phone and seeing the state of our home, I made up my mind. I'd be the one to end things with this man. I've already reported it to our boss, and I've asked for appropriate action to be taken. Tomorrow, when David goes to work, he'll be called into the boss's office and questioned severely. He was misusing company money after all. It's only right. Thank you for everything. I'll be happy on my own. Goodbye. My belongings have already been shipped to my new place. All that's left is for me to leave this house. Leaving a stunned David behind, I walked out of the house with a spring in my step. Later on, David was dismissed from the company. Being dismissed makes it hard to find another job, and it seems David is still unemployed and attending a job support center. Of course, the house is reportedly a mess. David was reluctant to sign the divorce papers and kept asking me to come back, but I had no intention of doing so. I left all the procedures to my lawyer and finalized the divorce. As for me, I switched from remote work to full-time and fully returned to work. I'll be single for a while, but I plan to look for a new relationship soon. Of course, my criteria for a partner is someone who's willing to share both household chores and child rearing.
My name is Harriet Simmons, a 32-year-old housewife with a part-time job. My husband Charles is 2 years older than me, and we have an almost 5-year-old daughter, Catherine. We are a family of 3. Charles works as a department head in the production management division of a clothing manufacturing company. After graduating college, I took a job as a customer service representative at a bank in the suburbs. Charles and I met through a mutual friend. Compared to my outgoing personality, Charles was a bit reserved. He was the kind of guy who made you want to protect him. We dated for a year before he proposed and we got married. Catherine was born the following year. My mother came from a place well known for its matriarchal society. I guess I inherited that trait from her, as I tend to take the lead in our household. Now that Catherine has started kindergarten, I work part-time at a local grocery store about 3 times a week. My parents handed over their house to me after they retired early and relocated to a second-hand villa near a ski resort. The house we as a family currently live in is the one they bestowed. My father, who began making pizza as a hobby, even opened up with a small pizza shop. It's located along the main road and is doing fairly well. My mother is renowned for her crepes made with the flour used for pizza. Their establishment has an unusual reputation as a cafe where you can enjoy homemade pizza, or a pizza place where you can have delicious crepes. While my parents enjoy a tranquil retirement, my in-laws, who live about 30 minutes away by car, are quite a handful. My mother-in-law comes from a noble family, and my father-in-law was adopted into the family through marriage. Naturally, my mother-in-law is a dominant figure, adoring Charles, my husband, and their heir. My husband is unmistakably a mama's boy, frequently visiting his childhood home. My mother-in-law has been persistently urging us to give her a grandson. When Catherine and I visit, she barely acknowledges her granddaughter, constantly pushing me to quickly give birth to a boy. Even when I take my daughter for a visit, she has to reintroduce herself. "Grandma, my name is Catherine. Haven't you remembered it yet?" "Oh, is that so? Well, either way, it's fine." "That is why I hate you, Grandma." "She really has no charm at all. Who does she take after?" she would say, frowning in my direction. Because she's a child, she's just being honest. I never voiced it out loud, but I say it softly in my heart. Due to this, Catherine never warms up to her grandmother. Incidentally, as my father-in-law is practically a non-entity, Catherine seems to have no interest in him either. Our relationship with my in-laws was gradually becoming distant because it was always like this. On the other hand, Catherine is adored by my parents, and she clings to them too, proclaiming, "I love Grandpa's pizza and Grandma's crepes." My mother-in-law still calls my husband my baby boy, and they're always talking together. My husband repeatedly says, "Mommy, mommy." Truly a mama's boy. It gives me the chills. When my mother-in-law sees my face, she says, "Harriet, our family is prestigious. We need a male heir. A daughter won't do. Please give birth to a son quickly." It's not easy to just give birth to a son, so I brush her off with all due respect, but then she would say, "The grandchild of our neighbor is a boy. They must be so happy to have a good daughter-in-law," and sighs, implying as if I am at fault. I don't care if they're a noble family or a prestigious family, they are just so outdated. As my father-in-law was adopted into the family, he just nods in agreement without opposing my mother-in-law. I endured this lifestyle because I love Catherine. However, my husband would start saying, "If only Catherine was a boy," whenever the opportunity arose. When I asked, "Isn't a girl good enough?" he would reply, "That's because my mommy says." And then my mother-in-law, who heard our exchange from my husband, would always call, "Why are you bullying my baby boy? Can't you cherish your husband even though you are his wife?" I would retaliate against such remarks. "Oh, do you cherish my father-in-law? I haven't heard his voice for a while now." "What did you say? You she-devil, if you bully my baby again, I won't let it go." If I'm a devil, then you're a demon. You should stop being so attached to your child. I was now at war with my mother-in-law. Then one day, my husband approached me with a discussion. My parents want to go on a trip, so I want to help them out a bit." He requested to arrange about $1,000. Where do you think we have that kind of money? You do know how much your salary is, don't you? Well, you understand, right? Even we want to go on a trip. I vented my usual frustrations on him. "But Both my parents are old now. Their legs will get weak soon and they won't be able to travel. They say they want to go to places they want to while they can. He's trying to appeal to my emotions by saying it's filial piety. I understand how you feel, but can't they manage with their own money? After arranging various travel items, it seems they didn't have enough for the actual travel expenses. It's their lack of planning that got them into this mess, just like you. But Harriet, don't you feel bad for them? Not at all. I'm not going to strain myself just to please them. Enough is enough. But there will be no buts or knees. I shut him down with a dad joke. Standing with my arms crossed, I towered over my husband who shrank in front of me. My daughter, Catherine, who had been watching the whole time, clapped her cute little hands, saying, "Mama, you're so cool." In the end, Charles, unable to arrange the money himself, shifted the responsibility to me and phoned my mother-in-law. "That useless wife of yours can't even do a little filial piety. She's not a real family member. Do something about it. She works part-time, doesn't she? She should have some savings. We don't have much time before the trip, so hurry up." Finally, unable to stand up to my scary mother-in-law, Charles quietly withdrew $1,000 from Catherine's account. When I found out, I was livid and stormed over to my in-laws' house. "Mother-in-law, I need to talk to you about the trip." "Oh, what's the matter all of a sudden? Don't play dumb. What do you mean by demanding travel money?" "Well, your husband willingly gave it as a part of filial piety, didn't he? What's wrong with that?" Right from the start, it was a total combat mode. He took it from our daughter's saving. You know, this isn't acceptable, right? "I couldn't care less. She's going to be married off anyway. Spending money on her is a waste." "What are you talking about? She is my precious child. Saving and spending money on our child is our responsibility." With a long-suffering expression, my mother-in-law retorted, "I can't believe we have such a woman as our daughter-in-law. She can't even bear an heir and is utterly useless at home. I didn't marry into your family. If you want an heir so badly, why don't you give birth to one?" With that, I stormed out of my in-laws' house. Anyway, I decided to make Charles repay that $1,000 from his pocket money. After their trip, my mother-in-law returned and summoned Charles and Catherine to their house. Though I was curious, my main concern was preparing for Catherine's 5th birthday. Planning a birthday party for a child this age is tricky. Who to invite? Obviously, I have to invite the children who invited Catherine to their parties. But there's a limit to how many people we can accommodate. Plus, what about food? And I still have to think about a present for Catherine. And our family party at night. My brain was at its limit. Oh, my brain needs sugar. I need to replenish the glucose. So I ate 3 of my favorite puddings and managed to devise a plan. Just as I was feeling a bit relieved, Charles and Catherine returned from my in-laws. But to my surprise, my usually lively daughter suddenly retreated to her room. When I asked Charles what happened, he responded, "Nothing, really." No, something's wrong. Our greetings at home were always high-spirited to match my enthusiastic daughter Catherine. It was our unspoken promise. This had never happened before. When I went to check on Catherine, she was sobbing. "What happened? Grandma told me that I am unwanted and shouldn't come home, so I had to stay outside all the time." What? I couldn't believe what had happened. "I was given a bottle of water, so I had to stay outside even though it was really hot." "And where was your dad?" "Dad was inside eating watermelon with Grandma." What? I stormed out of the room and confronted Charles. "What's going on? Why did you leave Catherine outside in this heat? Aren't you ashamed as a father, as a human, to be comfortable while your child is suffering?" My anger erupted, but unusually, Charles was defiant. "She was just noisy, so I made her stay outside. I made sure she stayed hydrated, so what's the problem?" This is unacceptable. It's normal for kids to be a bit noisy. As I raised my voice even more, Charles tried to change the topic. "Among our relatives' children,
Catherine is the only noisy one. Maybe girls really aren't good. My mommy also said this. She wants a boy soon. What are you even talking about? It doesn't matter if we get a boy or a girl. Babies are a gift from above. Today, Charles seemed unusually authoritative. Influenced by his mother, perhaps? If you're going to act like this, I might consider divorce. You would go that far? My body started shaking with anger. I never knew he could be this kind of man. My mommy said divorce that devil of a wife soon and find a younger one. I'm starting to think she might be right. I see. I have thoughts of my own. But remember, Catherine's birthday is coming up. I want you to celebrate it properly. All right, let's both cool our heads and talk later. I realized unexpectedly how Charles and my in-laws truly think. I couldn't master the energy to cook dinner that day, so Catherine and I ate at a nearby diner. Charles said he was going back to his parents' place and drove off again. Later, he contacted me saying that he would be staying at his parents' place for a while and would return for Catherine's birthday. I lied to Catherine, saying, "Daddy went home because Grandma is sick." Catherine responded, as if she was trying to understand in her own way. I revealed everything that had happened to my parents. Put the happiness of your child first. If she's happy, then you will be happy, right? We are on your side, Harriet and Catherine. If you want, you can come here. No, we would be delighted to see our granddaughter every day. My father responded with a smile. My parents' house has plenty of space for us to move back in. Catherine's school is a bit far, but it should be fine. More than anything, the nature there is superb. Even if we end up separating, the word divorce floated in my head. Then came Catherine's birthday. I had informed Charles about the party and its starting time. We had planned to have a birthday party with Catherine's friends during the day and a family party at night. However, Charles did not return even when the scheduled time arrived. "Daddy is late, isn't he? What happened?" Catherine asked. "Well, Daddy's busy, so he might be a bit late." I replied, even though I thought he was much too late. About an hour past the scheduled time, I found it peculiar and called Charles. "What's going on? Aren't you coming home yet?" "Oh, it's you. What's up at this hour?" He responded. "What do you mean, what's up? Today is Catherine's birthday. You said you would come. Catherine is waiting for you without touching her food." "Oh, right. I forgot about that." His response seemed a little tipsy and frivolous. "Right now, I'm in Australia with Mom. We're staying at a resort hotel and enjoying a luxurious vacation per her wish. We plan to be here for 3 weeks. By the way, the wine in Australia is surprisingly good." Wait, what? Australia? What are you thinking for getting Catherine's birthday? Oh, who cares about that? I don't care. As if to cover for Charles's outrageous command, I heard my mother-in-law's voice. "Who's that? The demon wife? Just ignore her. We don't need the useless woman who can't give birth to a boy anymore." Charles took that as a cue and said, "I think the same. I'm considering a divorce and decided to have an extravagant family vacation. We're having a good time, so stop calling." Then he hung up. What just happened? With a bad feeling, I checked our joint bank account. What is this? The balance was zero. Almost 300,000 of savings had been withdrawn. He used this money to go to Australia with his parents? Shocked, I collapsed on the floor. Tears wouldn't stop flowing. Catherine, worried, came over and asked, "Mommy, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Isn't Daddy coming?" I'm sorry, sweetheart. Daddy won't be coming today." "He isn't, but it's okay because Mommy is here. Catherine loves Mommy the most," she said, hugging me. No, she was comforting me. I hugged Catherine as I cried. "Catherine, Mommy will always protect you." At that moment, something inside me broke. The next day, I took action. I went to the government office and gathered necessary documents. I decided to settle everything and move back to my parents' house. I swore to myself that I would shatter everything. I received a text.
from Charles, accompanied by a photo of him and his mother in Australia, saying, "The luxurious trip is fun. No souvenirs as a punishment. I'll call you when we get to the station, so come pick us up." His message seemed very assertive. Maybe he felt stronger with his mother. Who would bother picking them up? I moved my belongings to my parents' house and began to organize Charles's things. When I explained the situation to my friend at work, she sided with me. Amazingly, her husband works for a moving company and they agreed to transport the luggage. They said they would charge the cost to my in-laws and they could also keep their belongings, so I decided to leave it to them. Then my daughter and I went to my parents' house where we were kindly welcomed. Seeing my parents' face, I started to cry again. Eventually, the day of Charles's return approached. Just as I was beginning to settle down at my parents' house, I received a text from him.
"I've arrived at the station. Please come pick us up."
Of course, I ignored it. There were multiple calls and texts, but I let them all go unanswered. Eventually, he must have arrived at his parents' house. I received a call from the landline. Thinking it was about time, I answered the phone.
"Why aren't you answering my calls despite the numerous attempts? Explain yourselves."
"I'm done. I have lost all desire to continue being your wife. Let's get a divorce as you wished."
Wait, are you serious? Divorce? You mean divorce?
Seems like that's what you and your precious mommy want.
What? Anyway, let's come down and talk this over when I get home.
After the call ended with that exchange, the phone rang again immediately.
"Hey, a truck from the moving company is at my parents' house and they're unloading tons of luggage. What's this all about?"
"Oh, that's your stuff. I thought you'd be returning soon, so I had it delivered. Please make sure to pay for the delivery charge and storage fees. Packing was a lot of work, but I'll consider that a service."
"Stop joking around. Calm down. I'm heading over there now."
And then he hung up. My daughter and I ate my mother's homemade crepes and excitedly awaited the moment. Looking at the wall clock, just as I thought it was about time, the phone rang. "Hello?"
"Hey, I just got home and there's nothing here."
"Oh, doesn't it look nice and clean?"
"No. What is this? I don't understand. Where are you? Is Catherine with you?"
Charles, who had returned to our house, was stunned to see it completely empty. "Yes, Catherine is with me. Say hi to Daddy, sweetheart." "Hello? Catherine is having grandma's crepes."
"Are you at your mother's house?"
"Yes, that's right. We had pizza for lunch. It was yummy." After taking the phone back from Catherine, I said, "A lawyer will contact you about the divorce soon, so be prepared."
"No, before that, what happened here? The house is gone and the place has turned into an empty lot."
It seemed Charles was surprised about something else. "I sold it. The land fetched a decent price, but the house wasn't worth much. So I turned it into an empty lot. Yes, I wanted to settle everything cleanly, so I handled everything while they were on vacation."
"What did you do with the money from selling the land? I had the right to receive some of it."
"The land was inherited by me before we got married, so you don't have any rights to it. It's my personal asset."
"So what will happen to Catherine?"
Moving on to the question of custody. You have the nerve to ask that even after leaving your child alone like that? If I leave Catherine with you, her life will be at risk. I will have custody, you will need to pay child support, and also I will be requesting a fair distribution of assets. I can't believe you squandered our savings. I will claim that amount back. Let's discuss this with our lawyers."
"What's going to happen to me?"
he asked. "Who do you think you're asking that question?" I couldn't care less. Just like your beloved mother told you, go find a young woman to bear your heir."
"We're not even divorced yet."
"Tell that to my lawyer." Not wanting to deal with him anymore. "I want you to know, I have no intention of reconciling with you. Now I'm going to start preparing dinner, so goodbye." I said and hung up. "Mom, you're so cool." Catherine clapped her hands. Then we started the divorce negotiations and I left everything to my lawyer. As expected, he brought his mother along. She insisted that everything was my fault and that her darling Charles was innocent. I discussed it thoroughly with my lawyer and I decided not to demand alimony, but I asked for a share of the assets, including the misappropriated amount and child support for Catherine. Charles was complaining, but when I threatened to take it to family court, if we couldn't reach an argument, he reluctantly accepted. My ex-parents-in-law sold their house to pay off the settlement and child support, which I received in a lump sum. Once things had settled, Catherine started attending a new kindergarten and made new friends. She's growing up to be a strong and lively child nurtured by the rich nature around us. Thanks to my previous experience as a bank employee, I found work at a local agricultural cooperative. I have become good friends with local farmers and sometimes they give me vegetables. And then one day, some old friend from where we used to live visited and told me about Charles. Apparently, he is doing as his mother told him and is actively seeking a young woman to marry. He was persistently hitting on a young woman at his workplace, but his creepiness and insistence caused all the women there to despise him, and he ended up quitting his job. Now he's working as a part-time job at a construction company that's all men. It seems he's developed a fear of women. My ex-mother-in-law is still pushing her son to remarry for the sake of family continuity. But there can't be many women who would marry a part-timer with a fear of women. Their noble family is sure to die out. I bet she's still blaming everything on me, but I don't care. Meanwhile, I have started dating a man I met at work who's also divorced and has a child in the same kindergarten class as Catherine. We are both single parents and our relationship is progressing with a view to the future. I bought a used car. Australia is out of the question, but Catherine and I occasionally drive to the nearby mountains and rivers. Since coming here, I have seen her smile a lot more. I realize that my life is dedicated to protecting her smile. Thankfully, my parents are still healthy and working. Along with my new partner, we dream of selling homemade pizza, crepes, and ready-to-eat dishes made with fresh, pesticide-free vegetables produced by local farmers at a nearby roadside station. Today, Catherine and I drove our old car to the river. The sky we looked up to was blue. As I watched Catherine stack pebbles from the stream, I took a deep, calming breath.
Do you swear to obey your husband in all things? If not, do you swear to divorce him? The voice of the mother-in-law-to-be echoed audibly in the holy ceremony. Looking at my soon-to-be husband, who was dressed in formal attire and waiting for my response with a shy expression, I felt a sense of despair about this marriage. My name is Emily. I lost my mom when I was young, and it's been just me and Dad ever since. Despite his busy work schedule, Dad did everything he could to make sure I wasn't lonely. During long vacations, he'd take me to various places to make memories. Whenever I'd start crying, missing Mom, he'd console me, tears in his own eyes. He is a kind dad. Dad was not good at cooking, and especially right after Mom passed, he'd often mess up meals and apologize to me. Wanting to support him, I started practicing cooking. At first, Dad watched me nervously as I handled fire, but it seems like my late mom's chef genes ran strongly in me, and I soon got good at it. Seeing my culinary skills, Dad happily handed the kitchen duties over to me. I started cooking for a likely exhausted Dad, which led me to develop an interest in baking. Now, as an adult, I work as a pastry chef. The job demands early mornings and late nights, but it's fulfilling. I met Raymond through my work. He's a delivery guy who brings supplies to my shop. At first, I didn't think much of him, but one day, he secretly slipped me his contact info. His bashful yet hopeful expression when he did that made my heart skip a beat. As we started communicating, we went out to various places. Raymond, sweating profusely, nervously proposed, "Will you marry me?" we became engaged. Raymond is indecisive. Even when buying a single piece of clothing, he'd say, "I can't decide which one's better," furrowing his brows. I actually like that about him. Some friends thought it was pitiable when hearing stories about Raymond, but to me, his constant disheveled state was endearing. However, after meeting Raymond's mother, I started to feel uneasy. Raymond was raised by a single parent. His folks divorced when he was young. He described his mom as a kind woman, but when we visited before the marriage, I didn't get that impression at all. "So, you are the beauty Raymond's bringing home?" Well, it would be rude to say more." The first words from her were an insult. Raymond, probably tense at the meeting of his mother and girlfriend, didn't defend me. I didn't expect much from him, but the sudden insult from the mother-in-law to be was a bit of a shock. When she found out I was a pastry chef, she looked disgusted. Apparently, she'd seen a TV show featuring the busy life of a pastry chef. "Can you take care of kids when they arrive, considering your job? Even taking care of Raymond is questionable. You'll be his wife. You'll have to dedicate yourself to him. Naturally, you'll quit your job once you're married, right? Raymond lives alone and can handle household chores just fine. He keeps his place neat for a guy, so I don't need to quit my job just to take care of him. When we have kids, I plan on taking maternity leave and parental leave, but I'm not giving up my career as a pastry chef." When I told this to my future mother-in-law, she turned bright red. "You can't do that. You should quit your job and become a full-time housewife. The role of a wife is to maintain the home. Times have changed. If we have kids, I want them to see a mother who's passionate about her career." "My word!" My rebuttal ignited her rage, and we were practically at each other's throats. Raymond was visibly stressed out in between us, and in the end, when I left his family home, he offered to walk me out. We were silent on the way to the station. I like Raymond, but I had no confidence that I could get along with that mother-in-law. I was starting to think this marriage wouldn't work. Then Raymond spoke in a subdued voice. "I'm sorry. My mom's a single mom and she's always been on edge, just trying to protect me. She's stubborn but kind. I'll make sure to tell her about your good qualities." I had been about to say that the marriage was off, but his words silenced me. I remember how hard my own dad had worked as a single parent, and thought maybe she was acting that way because she truly cares for Raymond. "Don't worry about it. I'm sorry for fighting with your mom. Next time we meet, I'll try to get along with her." Raymond nodded happily at my words, and we said our goodbyes. We had planned to meet each other's parents on our next date. Raymond said he was nervous, but having met his mom once, I felt prepared. I doubted anything worse could happen when meeting parents. I patted Raymond's shoulder to encourage him, and we waved goodbye. On the train home, I pondered whether I could get ever along with his mom. Raymond had spoken up for me, so I believed he would defend me next time too. However, that next chance didn't come until our wedding day. Even when we wanted to meet our parents, his mom kept saying she was too busy. My dad was concerned, but what could we do? Even on our wedding day, his mom didn't attend. Raymond kept apologizing. "I'm sorry, my mom's been really busy lately," and even bowed to my dad. I wasn't bothered by her absence since we didn't get along to begin with. I told Raymond I didn't want much to do with her even after the marriage. Raymond said, "If we can keep our wedding vows, then that's fine by me." Little did I know, This would be the beginning of a surprise on our wedding day. On the day of the wedding, Dad was crying when he saw me in my wedding dress. I couldn't help but laugh at the sight of Dad tearing up even before walking me down the aisle. "You better be happy, you hear me?" Through his tears, Dad said this, and I smiled and nodded. Raymond, who had been told to take care of Emily, was also grinning shyly. That's where my sense of bliss ended. I was standing with Dad in front of the chapel doors, nerves running high. Music began to play, and the double doors swung open. Before me lay the aisle, and at the end of it stood Raymond and, oddly enough, his mother. With arms linked, they both grinned, waiting for Dad and me to walk down the aisle. Dad whispered, "Who's that?" in a confused voice, to which I frantically replied, "That's Raymond's mum." The event staff seemed flustered too, but Dad and I began our walk down the aisle. Raymond was supposed to meet me halfway, but instead he stood with his mother at the altar. So Dad and I just stood there, dumbfounded in the middle of the aisle. Before everyone makes their vows, Emily must first vow to me, Mother-in-law announced, unfolding a piece of paper she had in her hand. Glancing at Raymond to see if this was some surprise, he was just smiling at his mother. "Will you vow to obey your husband unconditionally? If you can't, you must vow to divorce." The room stirred at mother-in-law's proclamation. Even the pastor and the staff seemed taken aback, and some were trying to stop her, but mother-in-law didn't care. That's when it hit me, something Raymond had said before. When I told him that it would be difficult to get along with his non-attending mother in the future, he had said, "If you can keep your vows at the wedding, that's fine by me." I had thought it was unusually romantic for Raymond, but that wasn't the case. He meant that it was fine if I could keep a vow to mother-in-law during the wedding. "What will it be? Will you vow?" Mother-in-law was grinning down at me, and inside I thought, "No, I can't. I can't be related to someone like this, and I certainly can't obey Raymond unconditionally." Next to me, Dad softly muttered, "Should we go?" To which I nodded and said, "Yes." As I started walking back down the aisle, my soon-to-be mother-in-law yelled, "Where are you going?" I turned around and made myself clear. I can't go through with this. I can't become family with people who act so ridiculously. Fuming, my mother-in-law yelled back. Raymond stood there dumbfounded, while Dad and I retreated to the waiting room. The staff was scrambling. I apologized to them over and over as I changed out my wedding dress into casual clothes. I heard that Raymond and his mother were in another room talking to the staff, so I went to the reception area, apologized to the guests who had come, and said I'd be returning their gifts before leaving the venue. It was a heartbreaking ending, and I apologized repeatedly to Dad. He comforted me, saying, "It's better to know what kind of man he is before marrying him." I couldn't help but cry like a child at my father's words. I didn't get to check my phone until the next day. I had received a slew of encouraging messages from friends who had been guests, along with multiple calls from Raymond. When I called him back, his mother picked up the phone, furious for some reason, yelling, "You're late in calling!" "Why are you answering? I wanted to speak with Raymond." "Raymond is inconsolable because you ruined the wedding. We were preparing a wonderful surprise, and now you will pay damages. Be prepared." Turns out, Raymond was apparently fired from his job. He had been working for a small delivery company. The owner was outraged by his outrageous behavior at the wedding and had declared him fired. Raymond was also being criticized by both my friends and his, sinking into depression. His mother blamed it all on me, saying I had ruined the wedding. I was more astonished than angry. It was the first time I had felt such a deep, cold rage. I waited for her to catch her breath and started talking. I'll be the one asking for a compensation. You ruined my wedding. Cover all the expenses for the venue. And needless to say, I won't be marrying Raymond. Please convey that to him. You can't be serious. You expect him to pay while he's this upset? You are unbelievable. The only one who's unbelievable here is you, don't you think? From what I've heard, your divorce happened for a rather selfish reason, too. What? You cheated on your spouse, tried to marry your affair partner, who then ditched you, and you only want custody of Raymond because you're his mother. Raymond and I had met his father on a date after we had said hello to mother-in-law. His father, who had continued to pay child support until Raymond was an adult, revealed the reason for the divorce while drunk. Be careful, she's a selfish person. Raymond, make sure you protect Emily, his father had told us. But those words never resonated with Raymond. You think saying sorry will fix this? We're not getting married anymore, and you're paying for the venue and the damages. What made you think I'd be happy with that kind of surprise? At this point, I was seriously concerned that mother-in-law was going to burst a blood vessel. Just then, Raymond's voice came on, taking over the call. I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry, Emily. Raymond pleaded in a desperate tone. You think saying sorry makes it okay? Forget the wedding, but you're paying for the cancellation and venue fees. What made you think I'd be pleased with a surprise like that? I was on the fence, but my mom said it was a test for the woman who's going to be my wife. Typical Raymond can't make a decision on his own. My fondness for his feeble yet endearing traits was gone. I was furious with Raymond for not considering my feelings, for not having an opinion on his own. I don't want to hear your voice anymore. I'll consult a lawyer from now on. So, don't show your face to me ever again. I hung up on Raymond, who was still apologizing, and immediately consulted a lawyer that my dad knows. The lawyer was furious when he found out how badly I'd been betrayed. Let's go all out, he said, and I found that reassuring. As I demanded, Raymond agreed to pay for the damages and the venue costs. The lawyer also filed a claim against Raymond's mom. Raymond and his mom struggled to find a lawyer on their side, and it looked like they had to accept all our demands. I received compensation from both Raymond and his mom and moved out with my dad. It was the lawyer's advice to avoid any potential nuisance. After the move, Dad and I lived peacefully. Raymond couldn't contact me, as I'd blocked his number and SMS. I thought I'd never hear about Raymond and his mom again. However, a few years later, I ran into Raymond's dad at a shopping mall. As soon as he spotted me, he rushed over and sincerely apologized for his son's behavior. According to him, Raymond and his mom had been estranged since the settlement. Apparently, Raymond went on a rampage at his parents' house, blaming mother-in-law for ruining the wedding. Mother-in-law, for her part, argued that he had to pay the cancellation fees because Raymond brought someone like me into their lives. It turned into a full-blown, knockdown, drag-out fight, or so I heard. Both Raymond and mother-in-law got into such a heated argument that they needed stitches. They were so strapped for cash that they had to beg father-in-law for financial help. Unsurprisingly, father-in-law had no intention of bailing them out financially. Neither expected any financial aid from Raymond's dad, and they both lived hating each other. "I hope you find happiness, Emily," he said. Feeling a bit shy, I touched my flat belly. "I intend to." A guy friend from the cancelled wedding with Raymond had been incredibly supportive. We'd been friends since college, and he'd confessed that he'd liked me all along. Now we're married. We didn't hold a ceremony as I'd had enough of weddings, but we did have wedding photos taken. Now I'm pregnant. Raymond's dad genuinely wished for my happiness. When I report this to my husband, he assured me, "Don't worry, I'll take both you and our baby happy." Despite a terrible wedding experience, I found a new life of happiness, and I intend to protect this happiness.
It had been a while since Eddie, my father-in-law, moved into a retirement community. One night, Jimmy, my husband, spoke up, which was rare. "If we don't have to take care of Dad anymore, you're useless to me. I'm leaving." Ah, so that's what this is about. You want a divorce? Jimmy nods silently. I had been putting up with Jimmy's terrible behavior ever since he blamed our infertility on me. I decided to accept the divorce. "I'll give you all the money we've saved together for your poor self." With that, Jimmy left and moved back to his parents' home. After the divorce was finalized, I got a call from my ex-husband Jimmy. "You were planning to set me up, weren't you?" At this point, he had lost his home, savings, and job. My name is Nina Dowell. I'm almost 35. I married Jimmy, my childhood friend, who is a year younger than me, 10 years ago. We're currently renting an apartment and living together. We grew up in the same neighborhood and played together since kindergarten. Jimmy's family was wealthy, and they lived in a mansion. We used to play hide and seek there. The place was so big that when Jimmy couldn't hide anymore, he would run to me crying, "Nina, Nina." I fondly remember how adorable he was, following me around. When I was in first grade, Jimmy envied my new backpack. "Let me borrow your backpack." He would borrow it and wear it with a big smile on his small back. A year later, when he got his own backpack, he started showing it off to me. I thought that was cute too. Jimmy outgrew me in height when I was in 4th grade. By then, he had become a basketball player and was good at academics. I used to get presents and cards from him every Valentine's Day. Around that time, I started getting jealous of the girls around Jimmy. I didn't realize it then, but now I know it was love. My first love. Years passed, and when Jimmy and I were in high school, he suddenly confessed his feelings. We started dating. After graduating from college and working for about 2 years, we decided to get married. Looking back, I've known Jimmy for a long time. My mother-in-law had already passed away, and my father-in-law was living alone in a big house. I would visit Jimmy's family home a few times a week to keep Eddie company and help him with chores. I often helped with shopping in the evenings. Eddie had always treated me like a daughter since I was little. I was fond of him and called him Eddie as if he were another father to me. I never thought he would actually become like another father to me. We both worked and had a joint bank account to save money for when we had kids. That said, I was worried because we couldn't have children. I'm already 35, which is generally considered an age for high-risk pregnancy. You're getting older. Maybe it's time to give up on having kids? Lately, Jimmy has been blaming my age for our inability to have children, and he's become disinterested in trying. Despite being hurt by his words, I still wanted a child with the man I love. I wished he would at least accompany me to medical checkups and be as informed about it as I am. Go to the hospital yourself. I'm busy with work. When did my husband become like this? Is it since he started working and coming home tired every day? He's become cold towards me. Jimmy is a salesman, so maybe he's stressed from work. I try to make home a relaxing place for him, but it doesn't seem to resonate. As March was coming to an end and Easter was approaching, I asked Jimmy, "Where are we going for Easter this year?" He simply said, "I have to work," and went to his room. Since Jimmy would be away for work, I decided to visit both my parents and Jimmy's parents. My parents and my brother live together happily. Because my brother stays with them, I only visit a few times a year, but they always welcome me warmly. "I'm home." "Welcome back. Good to see you." I decided to confide in my mom about our struggles to conceive. She gently held my hand and told me, "Don't rush." Her words lightened my heart a bit. Thanks, Mom. Time flew by as I relaxed at my parents' house. It was already evening, and I had to go home to prepare dinner. "I'm leaving now." "Come back anytime." Home is always warm. I returned home feeling fulfilled and waited for Jimmy. He came home around 7 p.m., but he had already eaten dinner and went straight to his room. I ate a hamburger alone and put Jimmy's portion in the fridge. I was so happy during the day, but now I feel like crying. I wondered where I went wrong, but couldn't figure it out. Did I ever neglect Jimmy? Did I ever say something cold to him? Thinking negatively is a bad habit, so I decided to go to bed early. When I woke up the next morning, Jimmy had already left. I hadn't heard he would leave so early, so I couldn't see him off. The hamburger from last night was gone. He must have eaten it this morning. The empty plate was left in the kitchen. I've been telling myself that Jimmy is tired from work, but I work too, and I'm starting to feel like I can't take it anymore. Since it's my day off, I headed to Jimmy's parents' house in the morning. Welcome! Eddie greeted me warmly. "Are you about to have breakfast?" He hadn't eaten yet, so while Eddie prepared some bread and coffee, I made scrambled eggs and cooked bacon. I was worried that I might be intruding so early in the morning, but Eddie smiled and said, "Thank you, it's delicious." It's been a while since someone complimented my cooking, and it feels really good. Jimmy used to enjoy my cooking, but he hasn't said anything like that in years. I'm glad you like it, Eddie. Since I could spend my day off at Eddie's, we chatted and watched TV until the evening. We even got excited talking about a TV show we both like. "You like that show too, Nina?" Eddie and I have quite similar tastes. I decided to prepare not just lunch and dinner, but also some meals for Eddie to keep. "Thank you so much for doing all this," he said multiple times as he saw me off, warming my heart. On my way home, I saw something shocking. Jimmy was coming out of an arcade, dressed in a suit. Maybe he finished work early because of Easter and stopped by. That thought crossed my mind, but I couldn't shake off my unease. The next morning, I decided to follow him to see where he was going. I felt guilty for doubting Jimmy and thought about turning back several times, but he ended up going to the same arcade as yesterday. Jimmy is lying to me. The realization hurt. When he came home that night, I confronted him about what I'd seen. "Were you really at work? Please be honest." I tried to ask as gently as possible, but Jimmy didn't apologize. Instead, he raised his voice. "We used to have some money to spend freely, but now we don't because we're saving for the future." But that's for our future children. At your age, you can't have kids anymore. I want to stop saving and enjoy the present. His words left me stunned, a mix of surprise and sadness. I couldn't find the words to respond. The conversation ended there. Jimmy sighed and went to his room. It was clear he wasn't thinking about our future. A few weeks later, I got a call saying Eddie was injured. I rushed to the hospital, but Jimmy said he was too busy with work to come. Eddie's injury wasn't serious, but it led to the decision for him to move into a retirement community. Eddie himself suggested it. I don't want to be a burden on you, Nina. I told him it wasn't a burden, but I also realized I couldn't be there for him all the time because of my work. I helped Eddie with the paperwork and preparations for moving into the retirement community. How's Jimmy doing lately? He seems busy with work. That's all I could say. Eddie seemed to sense something, but didn't press further. Jimmy hadn't visited his parents' house for a while, and didn't help with any of the preparations. A few days later, the day came for Eddie to move into the retirement community. I accompanied Eddie to the retirement community early in the morning. It was already hot outside, and I was sweating after just a short walk. Jimmy was off work today, but he said, "You going alone is enough," and left for somewhere else. Nina, you've been a real help. Thank you. I'll visit you again on my next day off. Eddie smiled warmly at me. One evening, after some time had passed since Eddie moved to the retirement community, Jimmy surprisingly initiated a conversation. So, now that Dad's in the retirement community, you don't have to take care of him anymore, right? I tilted my head, not understanding what Jimmy was getting at. Jimmy continued, serious-faced. You're unnecessary. I'm leaving this house. Ah, I see. So, you want a divorce? Jimmy nodded silently. Ever since he blamed me for not being able to have children, my feelings for him had cooled. I easily accepted the divorce. We started discussing property division, including our shared bank account. I'm not good at these kinds of conversations, but they're unavoidable. That's when Jimmy said, I'll give you all the money we saved together. Jimmy seemed to have strange confidence because his family is wealthy. As we proceeded with the divorce, Jimmy moved back to his parents' home. Goodbye. Yeah. It felt so anticlimactic, considering we'd spent so much time together since we were young. A few days after Jimmy moved back home, our divorce was finalized. Both of us were about to take new steps in life. Just then, I got a call from Jimmy. What the hell is going on? He said that movers had suddenly shown up at his parents' house and started taking furniture. He accused me of doing something. Actually, when Eddie was still at home, he had told me, Jimmy never visits. Maybe we spoiled him because we had money. Eddie looked sad. When Eddie moved to the retirement community, he said, I won't use this furniture anymore, and if I give it to Jimmy, he'll just waste the money, and had transferred everything to me. So the movers were arranged by me. I also told Jimmy that the house and land were already on the market and a buyer had been found. You can't just do that. Jimmy had apparently counted on the house, land, and furniture for the divorce and was yelling at me over the phone. You hid this to trap me. Since Jimmy wouldn't listen, I decided to let his father explain. Jimmy, it's been a while since we've talked like this. What's going on, Dad? Eddie calmly said, It's all settled. There's nothing you can do. You've been the one not visiting or calling me for a long time. The discussion is over. Game over. Jimmy seemed to be at a loss for words after hearing that. A few days later, I visited Eddie at the retirement community. I heard that Jimmy, who had lost his home, furniture, and savings, had moved into a rundown apartment. Apparently, he had also quit his job, counting on his family's money, and was struggling to find new work. Right now, he's barely making ends meet by doing manual labor as a day laborer at construction sites. No one could have seen this coming.
How's Nina doing these days?
I rented a place near my parents' house and am living quietly. I spend weekdays having dinner and weekends at my parents' house, unless I have other plans. My parents and brother are happy to see me so often. I'm also happy to help with household chores.
Nina, you're such a good kid.
Eddie smiled at me as he always does. Then he continued with a smile.
Jimmy came to see me 3 days ago. He asked how I was doing here and if there was anything he could do for me.
Hearing this, I felt a bit relieved. Maybe Jimmy had finally come to his senses. Being in a tough situation made him realize how privileged his past self was and what he should truly value now. Can I come to visit you like this sometimes?
Of course, thank you as always.
Even after divorcing Jimmy, Eddie remains an important figure in my life, almost like a second father. I hope that someday I can have a good relationship with Jimmy again. With that thought, I head back to my parents' house. Welcome back. How is Eddie? He's good. He seemed happy that Jimmy visited him. Oh, that's good to hear, my mom said. Nina, can you help with dinner? Of course. Let me put my stuff away first, I replied and quickly headed to my room. I want to protect what's important to me and continue living in this peaceful life.
Nice to meet you. Wow, so you're the wife. You're exactly as I imagined. The woman my husband suddenly brought home stares at me rudely. Feeling uncomfortable, my husband introduces her as the woman he loves. Ignoring my shock, she dreamily talks about how my husband came to her aid when she was in trouble. Right after listening to her story with pride, my husband presents me with an unthinkable choice. Before getting married, I, Sarah, lived with my Aunt Heather. She took me in after my parents passed away when I was a child. She's never shown a hint of annoyance, and she's essentially my second mom. We have lived apart since I got married, but I assist with her work as I do mine from home. I'm married to Victor, who is 2 years older and 35. Back when we were dating, he was a nice guy. Always impeccably dressed in a suit and thoughtful enough to help out around the house when he knew I was tired. I use the past tense because he's not the man I married. After the wedding, he transformed into a tyrant, a complete stranger. In public, he plays the part of a gentle husband, but alone with me, he treats me like a servant. He used to say, "Housework is a shared responsibility." But now he doesn't lift a finger and treats me like a housekeeper. One day, I had to go out suddenly due to an urgent work-related call. I returned home completely exhausted, and Victor, who was waiting in the living room, was furious. "Where have you been all this time? I come home tired from work, and you haven't even prepared dinner or a bath. How useless can you be? You were raised by your single aunt, so you know nothing about being a devoted wife." Despite letting Victor know I'd be out for an emergency and uncertain when I'd return, he's like this. I held back my response to avoid further upsetting him, even though I had seen that he read my message. I thought to myself, Victor can handle his own meals and bath, but he insists on complaining instead. "What's with that look? If you have something to say, say it.
Were you lying about work? Are you seeing another guy behind my back?
Once Victor starts to get angry, there's no calming him down. If I try to defend myself now, he'll only get more heated. Even as I apologize and start preparing dinner, he keeps accusing me of cheating, of not fulfilling my role as a housewife. By next morning, he's treating me like I don't exist. I say good morning, and he ignores me. He doesn't touch the breakfast or lunch I prepared to avoid complaints. He leaves for work without saying a word and comes home to yell about no dinner or bath. I was already fed up, but this petty, unreasonable behavior made me seriously consider divorce. A month passed quickly as I began packing and looking for a new place. One day, Victor came home early with a woman. Knowing that he's polite to others, I was relieved, thinking he wouldn't yell at me in front of her. The woman, walking in boldly without hesitation, looked at me and smirked. "Hi, I'm Rebecca." There were many things I wanted to comment on, but instead, I simply introduced myself as Victor's wife. "Oh, you're the wife? Just as I imagined. Exactly how Victor told me you'd be." Feeling uncomfortable under Rebecca's invasive gaze, I turned to Victor. "If you're bringing a work colleague home, I'd like a heads up," I said. The room fell silent. Finally, Victor spoke, and it was not what I expected.
She's the woman I truly love. Not like you. She's special and deserves my real affection. She's moving in. Pack your things and leave."
I was lost for words. Ignoring my reaction, Victor dreamily looked at Rebecca.
"Unfortunately, Rebecca's house burned down a month ago. She's been staying with friends or at hotels. But then I realized she could stay here with me."
Leaning on Victor's arm, Rebecca nodded, adding her voice to his nonsense. As I stood there dumbfounded, wondering what was happening, Victor looked down at me and said,
"Well, it's gotta be tough being told to leave out of the blue. If you serve us as a housekeeper, you can stay. I'm a generous guy. I'll even let you sleep here as long as you work. So, choose. Leave or work as a housekeeper. What will it be?"
Victor and Rebecca clearly mocking me. "I'm leaving. Let's get a divorce." Without any hesitation, I handed Victor the already filled out divorce papers I had prepared in advance. Victor, showing a moment of surprise, then exchanged a smug look with Rebecca and taunted me.
"Not bad. Finally showing some initiative. If you were always like this, I never would have dumped you."
As he said this, Victor eagerly began filling out his part of the divorce papers. Taking the opportunity, I presented Rebecca with another set of documents. "These are the damage claims for the recent fire. Please review them." Rebecca froze, puzzled by my sudden mention of the fire, muttering a small, "Huh?" See, Rebecca and I had met once before, years ago. I was the landlord of an apartment that my aunt had put me in charge of, and Rebecca had been one of the tenants. So, the house she claimed burned down was actually one of my apartments, and the altercation she had with Victor a month ago was due to this very fire. An investigation found that the fire had started in Rebecca's room because she was smoking in bed. I had been consulting with the police, the fire department, and insurance companies for damage estimates and claims, during which time Rebecca had changed her contact info and gone AWOL. I learned that her father, who was her guarantor, had passed away after the contract was signed. Even her mother seemed to have sold their home and moved away. After contacting Rebecca's place of employment, I find out she's already been fired due to frequent unexcused absences. I can't reach her guarantor, or her employer, so it seems like she's dropped off the face of the earth. I had been considering steps like asking for her social security number, filling a missing person report with the police, and even resorting to a public notice for disposing of her belongings. But never did I think she'd show up on her own. While I was unaware of her affair with Victor, this certainly sped things up. I explained to Rebecca, who seemed still not to grasp the situation, that I was demanding overdue rent and damages due to her severe negligence that caused the fire. So the initial amount for the fire damages, which was originally set at $3,420, was doubled to $6,840 after she tried to flee. Naturally, I also insisted on receiving a security deposit for the affair. Rebecca started to panic and suddenly began making excuses about the fire.
I thought I put out the cigarette properly. Maybe it was my oversight that it didn't go out. But if it's a minor fault, insurance should cover it, right? Also, my room had a lot of clothes and paper bags from department stores, so it caught fire easily. But who would expect it to be so flammable?
Rebecca's new testimony was completely different from her initial one, admitting she didn't understand the risk. No matter how much she tries to make excuses now, the documentation I've gathered over the past month is rock solid. She can't evade payment. As I pointed out each document and recounted her past statements, Rebecca finally seemed to grasp that she couldn't overturn the facts here and was visibly stunned. Victor, taking Rebecca's place, slammed the table and shouted at me. "How heartless can you be? Rebecca almost died in that fire and she lost her home." It's her own doing. I even avoided immediate claims for compensation, considering she might need money for treatment and relocation. You're the ones who took advantage of my kindness to run. Besides, the real victims are the innocent residents of the other apartments who lost their homes. Apparently, at a loss for words, Victor started insulting me, saying I have a terrible personality and even that my cooking is bad. It was amusing to me and strangely reassuring. We, who were once married, realized there's not a shred of love left between us. Naturally, I also informed Victor that I'd be demanding a security deposit from him for the affair. Stunned by the word security deposit, Victor gaped at me with a dumbfounded expression. Perhaps he thought that the issue was settled in his favor because I chose to leave quietly. One would think that he'd expect to also be billed when Rebecca was. When I added that I would inform him of the amount later, Victor glared at me with bloodshot eyes. "It's all about money with you. How greedy can you be? Unbelievable. Let's go." Victor, in a huff, stormed out of the house, dragging the still dumbfounded Rebecca with him. I checked the divorce papers Victor left behind to ensure everything was filled out correctly, and quickly moved on to my next step. Victor, who had stormed out barefoot and empty-handed, unsurprisingly returned within 2 days. He had left all his essentials behind, so I knew he would be back. During this period, I had gathered all the evidence of the affair and I wasn't going to let this opportunity slip. I told Victor that I was recording our conversation and warned him not to cause a scene. Then, I once again insisted that he pay me a security deposit for all his nasty comments and his affair. "If you won't pay, I'll get a lawyer and take this to court," I said. Faced with that ultimatum, Victor agreed to pay me on the spot, I had been gathering evidence of his abusive language since I started thinking about divorce. I had these recordings as a safety net for divorce discussions, but they came in handy now. The agreement I drafted included several conditions, such as admitting to the affair and future payments of the security deposit. Victor signed it while begrudgingly muttering that I was a gold digger, but he seemed desperate to avoid a public scandal. After securing his promise, I kicked Victor out of the apartment I had rented. He didn't have enough money for a new place, so he was apparently sleeping in hotels and internet cafes. However, the easygoing life doesn't last. Soon enough, the savings are gone, and he returns to his parents for help. Though he didn't tell his parents about the divorce, only saying that we had a big fight and I kicked him out, his parents already knew the whole story. I had filled them in when I sent Victor's belongings back to them. Victor's parents were outraged by his actions. Disowned by his family, Victor turned up at Rebecca's apartment. He thought he could easily crash there, but things didn't go as planned. Rebecca blamed Victor for the additional damages she had to pay because of his actions and broke up with him on the spot. They had a massive fight that was so loud, their neighbors reported them. The person who reported us turned out to be our neighbor. And unfortunately, he was Victor's new boss who had just been transferred to headquarters. He was only living in this apartment temporarily for a month until company housing became available. Ironically, he was planning to move out just next week. When the police separated Rebecca and Victor, he recognized his boss and blanched. I was shocked to find out that the source of the ferocious yelling was Victor, who's usually mild-mannered around me. His boss seemed to have felt that Victor's extreme yelling raised some serious concerns about his character. As a result, the promotion that was almost in the bag got withdrawn, with a note to keep a closer eye on how he treats his subordinates. Meanwhile, Rebecca found herself in hot water. The folks at her new job who recommended the apartment found out about the police ordeal. It wasn't just a nuisance for the neighborhood. She was implicated in infidelity and liable for damages from the fire. Needless to say, they withdrew her job offer. Both she and her partner blamed me for their troubles and showed up at my door, screaming and pounding away. I didn't bother to unlock the door. I just called the cops. Being the cowards they are, the two hightailed it as soon as they heard the police sirens. A few days later, I was shocked to receive full payment from Rebecca for both the damages and the deposit. As I suspected, she might skip town. I did some digging and found out that her new affair partner was the one who provided the money. You'd think she'd learn, but no. She keeps getting involved with married men. Though she paid up with someone else's money, I wasn't sure about to let her off the hook. I hatched a plan to send her new lover a gift. Turns out the guy is a business owner who felt sorry for poor homeless Rebecca and had given her a substantial amount of money. I mailed him the same legal documents I had sent to the insurance company and my lawyer, proof of her deceit, all accidentally included with some promotional flyers. The call for fact-checking came just a few days after the mail was sent. A man who fully believed Rebecca's lies, that she was a victim of fire damage but was being unfairly charged due to a loophole in the law, was furious when he found out the truth. He demanded Rebecca to fix their relationship and repay the money he had lent her. Lawyers and private investigators got involved right away, and they found out everything. from her contact information to the job she was applying for. Rebecca, now without anyone to help her, turned to Victor, who she thought was rebuilding his life. He didn't entertain her pleas. Victor has been making payments to me, while Rebecca has been slowly paying off her former lover, the company president. After discussing with my aunt, I decided to take this opportunity to rebuild the apartment that burned down. The old apartment, which had low rent, was revamped with security enhancements like entryway monitors and cameras in common spaces, and also got a stylish exterior. Some previous tenants returned, but now the main tenants are students. Thanks to the nearby college and the location, students moving from rural areas have found my apartment. The apartment has gained popularity among not just students, but also their parents for its high security features, maintaining a steady occupancy rate even after increasing the rent.
My name is Amelia. I'm a 40-year-old housewife. My husband Charlton is 35, and we have been married for 5 years. We are a happy couple, just the two of us. I grew up with just my dad, who worked a corporate job after my mom passed away when I was young. I was always worried that if I got married, my dad would be left alone. Even when I was dating someone, I hesitated to take the plunge into marriage. Whenever I talked about my hesitation, people would say it's because I'm a daddy's girl who loves her father too much. That's when I met my current husband. He understood how much I care for my dad and even said he would be okay with us living with him. That sealed the deal, and I decided to marry him. My dad was thrilled when I told him the news.
I am so happy. Now I can face your mother in heaven. Don't worry about me, just focus on being happy with Charlton. Charlton, please, take good care of my daughter. Make her happy, especially because she has had to struggle with just one parent.
My dad had never said it, but he had been worried that my being raised by a single parent might be a reason for me not getting married. He also runs a real estate agency while working his corporate job. We received a new house as a wedding gift from my dad and lived happily. Then, 2 years ago, my dad retired at 65. After retiring, he seemed to lose his energy and seemed to age rapidly. So I started calling him every day and visiting him regularly to check on him. My husband's work schedule changed, leading to more overtime, so I started visiting my dad even more. One day, I couldn't reach my dad at the usual time, so I went to check on him. I found him collapsed in the bathroom. I called an ambulance immediately, but he never regained consciousness. Tests revealed he had suffered a brain hemorrhage and was hospitalized. I visited him every day, but he never woke up and eventually passed away. I held back my tears as I said my final goodbyes and began arranging the funeral. The funeral was a small family affair, but some relatives showed up claiming they were promised inheritance. Thankfully, my dad had left a will in my name, so I inherited all his savings and properties. I felt my dad's love even after he was gone, and it filled my heart. I had no idea that more challenges were yet to come. My husband's family is generally sensible, but there is one sister-in-law who's terrible with money. Hey, Amelia, you inherited from your dad, right? We're sisters now, even if it's by marriage. Help me out, I'm in trouble. She's been in debt and has been asking for money quite shamelessly. I've been turning her down, but it's getting stressful. Then one day, I received an email. It was an invitation to a class reunion. As I was pondering whether to attend the class reunion, my husband Charlton spoke up.
What's got you looking so serious?
There's a class reunion coming up, but I'm not really in the mood, especially after Dad passed away.
Maybe it will be a good change of pace. Your dad wouldn't want you to be down all the time.
You're right. Encouraged by my husband, I decided to go to the reunion. When the day arrived, I was enjoying catching up with old friends. While I was alone getting a new drink, a classmate approached me.
Amelia, long time no see.
Sorry? Who are you?
Ouch, don't recognize me, I'm Cody.
I couldn't quite remember him, but he seemed to know me.
Wanna catch up?
Just then, one of my old friends called out, "Amelia, where's that drink?" Snapping back to reality, I said, "Sorry, my friends are waiting," and left. My friend quickly approached me looking concerned. "Are you okay? Did that guy bother you?" "No, we were just talking. He said his name was Cody, but who is he?" "He's that unreliable playboy from the baseball team. Good looking and athletic, remember?" "Oh, right. He looks different now, so I didn't recognize him. Be careful, he's still a playboy. And he was eyeing you." "Come on, I'm married. I'm not exactly young anymore." I laughed it off then, but Cody kept trying to engage me. I managed to avoid him until the end of the first part of the reunion, but then he cornered me.
Why are you avoiding me, Amelia? It hurts. Are you maybe interested in me?
"Don't be ridiculous.
Why so defensive? Just be honest."
I'm married, you know."
So, plenty of married people still play around. Plus, I have always liked you. How about we go for drinks?
No, thank you. If you want to drink, go to the after party." I managed to shake him off and caught a taxi home. I thought that would be the last of Cody, but more trouble was waiting for me. The next day, while I was working at the cafe, where I have a part-time job, a familiar man walked in. As I approached with a glass of water, I realized it was Cody. "What are you doing here?"
Just a coincidence. Lucky me, running into Amelia.
"Don't lie. Who told you?"
Relax, let me place an order first. 1 blended coffee.
Reluctantly, I took his order and made his coffee. "Leave after you finish this."
It says all limited refills during this time. I'll take my time.
After Cody took his sweet time chatting and sipping 3 cups of coffee, he finally paid his bill.
Just so you know, I'll be a regular here from now on,
he said, ignoring the atmosphere. I couldn't exactly kick out a customer, so I found myself serving Cody every day. I tried talking to my manager, but without any real harm done, there was nothing they could do. I wanted to consult my husband, but he was swamped with work and rarely home. Then, on a day off from my part-time job, I returned from shopping to a shocking sight.
Welcome back, Amelia. You're late.
Cody was at my house. How did you find out where I live?
Who knows? Maybe we're just fated to be together?
Stop being creepy and leave.
Why not ditch your workaholic husband and be with me? I'll treat you right.
Cody tried to put his arm around me. A chill ran down my spine and I had had enough. I pushed him away. Days later, my sister-in-law visited while my husband was home. "We need to talk," they both said, looking serious.
You have been acting strange since the reunion. You're seeing another man, aren't you?
What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. We have evidence. Sister-in-law flipped over the envelope she was holding. Out spilled a bunch of photos of me hanging out with a guy named Cody. Pictures from a recent reunion, some from my workplace, and even one where Cody had his arm around me in front of my house. The photos were cleverly taken to look like we were having secret meetings. If you only saw these, you would think I was cheating for sure.
This is irrefutable evidence. We're getting a divorce and you owe me $50,000. Pay up. All at once.
My husband and sister-in-law were smirking. It was clear they were trying to frame me for cheating. I decided to play along. Fine, if you insist on a divorce, let's do it. Don't worry about the settlement or alimony. I'll handle it all properly. At my words, my husband and sister-in-law exchanged triumphant glances. But I had no intention of letting them off the hook. From here on out, I will push both of you into hell. Oh, by the way, the inheritance I got from my dad isn't part of the marital assets.
What?
My husband and sister-in-law were stunned. My husband was the first to come to his senses.
Why not? Money earned after marriage is supposed to be split evenly.
True, for money we have earned while married. But inheritance from my deceased parents isn't something we acquired together, so it's not part of the settlement. Didn't know that, did you? Too bad for you.
What?
How do I know all this? Cody told me everything. Turns out I had consulted the police the day Cody showed up at my house. Cody got scared after a warning from the police and spilled the beans the next day.
I'm really sorry. My coworker just asked me to seduce Amelia, that's all.
Cody deeply apologized and spilled everything he knew. Turns out Cody was a junior colleague of my sister-in-law at work. My sister-in-law had heard about a reunion from her husband and said, "Cody, you went to school with my sister-in-law, right?" Set a honey trap for her. If my brother and his wife divorce, we'll get some money from the settlement. I'll give you a cut if it works. Cody got manipulated by sister-in-law and started getting close to me, while they took photos to document it. They were trying to blackmail me with these fabricated proofs of infidelity. Oh, wait a minute, you're saying I set this guy up? How can you prove it without any evidence? Sister-in-law denied it. I have evidence. Take a look at this. I showed them my phone screen. I had saved the text exchanges between Cody and sister-in-law and separately the text between sister-in-law and my husband. The text read, I was so surprised to bump into you in front of the hotel.
Me too. Keep my girlfriend a secret.
Of course. You keep quiet about the guy I was with too.
Deal.
Your girlfriend is stunning. How did you meet her?
She is a co-worker in my department. We met after a transfer. I'm so happy after being with her every day.
You're bold, cheating so openly and not getting caught.
If I say it's over time, Amelia doesn't ask more. She has been so down since her father passed. I couldn't stand it otherwise.
Wow. Poor Amelia.
Actually, I want to divorce Amelia and marry her.
I have an idea. Let's make it look like Amelia cheated. Even if she doesn't fall for the honey trap, we'll have the photos and evidence. We can get compensation and a share of the inheritance. Both my husband and sister-in-law panicked after seeing the saved text. How did you get this? Charlton, what does her mean? Sister-in-law, you're engaged and you're cheating too? You think I would cheat just because you are?
Give me that phone. Delete it now.
My husband tried to snatch the phone from my hand. Oops, my hand slipped. I narrowly managed to forward the screenshots of the text exchanges to someone. My husband looked at the phone screen he had just snatched from me, his face drained of color.
You've got to be kidding. Dad?
Hurry up, long press the image and cancel the message. Both were panicking, but in the meantime, my father-in-law had already read the message. Realizing that I had accidentally forwarded the SMS screenshots to father-in-law, my husband and sister-in-law turned pale. Soon after, my phone rang. It was father-in-law. Charlton, you messed up, so you answer it.
No way. That was your idea, sis. You take responsibility.
My husband and sister-in-law were pushing my phone back and forth. Finally, sister-in-law said, You deal with it, and handed me back the phone. I answered and explained everything to father-in-law. That night, a family meeting was called at my in-laws' house. As expected, my husband and sister-in-law got an earful. You both cheated and tried to frame an innocent woman? Shame on you.
We owe a lot to Amelia's father. How dare you betray that trust?
My usually calm mother-in-law looked disgusted and father-in-law was furious. Turns out, my dad and father-in-law had a long-standing business relationship and my dad had helped father-in-law in times of need. Father-in-law turned to me and bowed deeply.
I'm so sorry for my foolish daughter and son. I don't know how to apologize.
After that, I decided to seek compensation from sister-in-law, my husband, and Cody through a lawyer. Despite the pending divorce and compensation, my husband packed his bags and left, going off the grid. I had a private investigator look into it and found out he had run off to his mistress's house. I was dumbfounded. I sent documents demanding compensation for adultery to both their workplaces. As a result, my husband and his cheating partner were in a bad position within the company, and my husband was relegated to another department. This led to my husband being demoted and his mistress, who was part-time, getting fired. While investigating my husband, I also had sister-in-law's affairs looked into. Turns out, she had not one but two lovers. I informed her fiancé and my in-laws and sent them the evidence. Naturally, sister-in-law's engagement was called off and she was also sued for compensation. Afterwards, my husband and sister-in-law turned to their parents for help, but they refused and cut ties. They never thought their plan to frame me for cheating would backfire like this. Thanks to my lawyer, the divorce went through smoothly. While I felt relief, I also realized I was now alone, especially since my dad had passed away. I thought I would be lonely, but thanks to my supportive friends and my former in-laws, who had been incredibly kind, I'm doing surprisingly well. Every now and then, my ex-husband reaches out. His messages are either about wanting to get back together, saying things like, "You're the only one for me," or asking for loans. I ignore them and send screenshots to father-in-law each time. My ex gets scolded by father-in-law again. Does he not have a learning function in his brain? Maybe he doesn't have a brain at all. Since then, Cody has stopped showing up at the cafe where I work. Now that I'm divorced and don't have to worry about anything, I have decided to work there as a full-time employee. Moving forward, I plan to manage the inheritance my dad left me while working harder than ever.